Welcome back. We are still on the topic graph of quadratic functions. In the previous video, we solved a question on using the graph of a quadratic function to find the solution of another quadratic equation. In this video, we are going to solve another question. The question for this video is: complete the table below for the relation y is equal to 2 minus x squared. Then use the values in the table to draw the graph of the relation y is equal to 2 minus x squared. We have learned how to do this already, so you go to the last part of our question, which is from your graph, find the truth set of 3x squared minus 2x minus 5 is equal to 0. So you will find the solution of this equation and then we will write our answer as a truth set. As we can clearly see, the quadratic expression in the function is different from the quadratic expression in the equation. The quadratic expression in the function is 2 minus x squared. The quadratic expression in the equation is 3x squared minus 2x minus 5. They are completely different. We have learned that to use the graph to find the solution of such an equation, the first thing you have to do is to compare the coefficient of the quadratic term in the equation to the coefficient of the quadratic term in the function. So let's do that. The function is y is equal to 2 minus x squared. The equation is 3x squared minus 2x minus 5. The quadratic term in the function is minus x squared. So the coefficient of the quadratic term in the function is minus 1. The quadratic term in the equation is 3x squared. So the coefficient of the quadratic term in the equation is 3. Okay, so now the coefficient of the quadratic term in the function is minus 1. The coefficient of the quadratic term in the equation is 3. We have learned that if the coefficient of the quadratic term in the equation is different from the coefficient of the quadratic term in the function, what you have to do is that you multiply the equation by a constant such that the coefficient of the quadratic term in the equation will be the same as the coefficient of the quadratic term in the function. So in this case, we are going to multiply this equation by a constant such that we will change the coefficient of the quadratic term in the equation, which is 3, to the coefficient of the quadratic term in the function, which is minus 1. So we are going to multiply 3 by a constant or a number such that it will change to minus 1. So what number should we multiply by 3 such that we will change it to minus 1? That number is minus 1 divided by 3, because if you multiply minus 1 divided by 3 by 3, if you multiply minus 1 divided by 3, you see that 3 and 3 will cancel each other out. So you have minus 1 times 1, which will give us minus 1. So this means that we will have to multiply this whole equation by minus 1 divided by 3. So let's do that. We will have minus 1 divided by 3 times. The expression here is a trinomial, so you put it in a bracket. So times 3x squared minus 2x minus 5 in a bracket. And this is equal to minus 1 divided by 3 times 0. Whatever you do to the left hand side, you do the same thing to the right hand side in an equation. Okay, so you have minus 1 divided by 3 times 3x squared. And that will give us minus x squared, because 3 and 3 will cancel, so you have minus 1 times x squared, which will give us minus x squared. Minus 1 divided by 3 times minus 2x, that will give us 2 divided by 3x. Minus 1 divided by 3 times minus 5, and that will give us plus 5 divided by 3. And this is equal to 0, because minus 1 divided by 3 times 0 gives us 0. So after multiplying the equation by minus 1 divided by 3, we have this equation, minus x squared plus 2 divided by 3x plus 5 divided by 3 is equal to 0. The quadratic term in this new equation is minus x squared, and the coefficient of this quadratic term is minus 1. So now the coefficient of the quadratic term in the equation is the same as the coefficient of the quadratic term in the function. So we can go ahead with our subtraction. I'll write the function first. Y is equal to 2 minus x squared. But I'll rearrange it and write it in the general form of a quadratic function. That is, I'll write the square term first, then I'll write the x term as the second term, then I'll write the constant as the last term. The square term or the quadratic term is minus x squared. So we have y is equal to minus x squared. There is no x term, so I'll write 0 and attach x to it. So we have minus x squared plus 0x. Then the constant is 2, so plus 2. So we have y is equal to minus x squared plus 0x plus 2. We are going to subtract this equation from this function. I'll write the equation also in the same form. So I'll write the 0 on the left hand side, then the quadratic expression on the right hand side. So we have 0 is equal to minus x squared plus 2 divided by 3x plus 5 divided by 3. We are going to subtract the equation from the function. So let's start. We will have y minus 0 is equal to, you have minus x squared minus x squared. So that will give us minus x squared plus x squared. Then you have 0x minus 2 divided by 3x plus 2 minus 5 divided by 3. As we can see, minus x squared and plus x squared will give us 0. Y minus 0 will give us y. 0 minus 2 divided by 3x will give us minus 2 divided by 3x. 2 minus 5 divided by 3 will give us 1 divided by 3. So after subtracting the quadratic equation from the quadratic function, we have a linear function, which is y is equal to minus 2 divided by 3x plus 1 divided by 3. We have learned in the previous videos that to find the solution of this quadratic equation, 3x squared minus 2x minus 5 is equal to 0, we will have to draw the graph of this linear function on the same graph sheet as the quadratic function. So let's do that. This is the graph of the quadratic function y is equal to 2 minus x squared. And on this graph sheet, we are going to draw the graph of the linear function y is equal to minus 2 divided by 3x plus 1 divided by 3. We have learned how to draw the graph of a linear function on a graph sheet. We have learned that you need at least 2 points that fall on the line. So you assume a value for x, you substitute it into the equation and get its corresponding y value. You do the same thing to get another point. Then you plot those 2 points on the graph sheet and join them with a straight line to get the graph of the linear function. So let's do that. Let's assume that x is equal to 2. When x is equal to 2, y will be equal to minus 2 divided by 3 times 2 plus 1 divided by 3. And this will give us y is equal to minus 1. So when x is 2, y will give us minus 1. We need another point, so let's assume another value for x. When x is equal to minus 1. When x is equal to minus 1, y will be equal to minus 2 divided by 3 times minus 1 plus 1 divided by 3. And this will give us 1. So when x is equal to minus 1, y will be equal to 1. We now have 2 points that fall on the line. The first one is 2 minus 1 and the second one is minus 1, 1. Let's plot the first point on the graph sheet. 2 minus 1, so 2 on the x-axis and minus 1 on the y-axis. It falls on this point. The next one is minus 1, 1. So minus 1 on the x-axis and 1 on the y-axis, and that will fall on this point. We are going to join these 2 points with a straight line to get the graph of the linear function y is equal to minus 2 divided by 3x plus 1 divided by 3. So now on this graph sheet, we have the graph of the quadratic function y is equal to 2 minus x squared and the graph of the linear function y is equal to minus 2 divided by 3x plus 1 divided by 3. How do we use this graph? to find the solution of the quadratic equation 3x squared minus 2x minus 5 is equal to 0. We have learned in the previous videos that the solution of this quadratic equation will be the x coordinates of the points of intersection of the quadratic curve and the straight line. On the graph sheet, we can see that the quadratic curve and the straight line intersect at this point and this point. The solution of this equation, 3x squared minus 2x minus 5 is equal to 0, are the x coordinates of these points of intersection. So to get the first solution, we will trace the first point to the x-axis. When I trace it to the x-axis, I'm getting minus 1. So minus 1 is the first solution. To get the second solution, we will trace the second point to the x-axis. When I trace it to the x-axis, I'm having 1.7. So from our graph, the solution of the quadratic equation 3x squared minus 2x minus 5 is equal to 0 is minus 1 or 1.7. But the question said we should write our answer as a truth set. So we can say that the truth set of the quadratic equation 3x squared minus 2x minus 5 is equal to 0 is s is such that x is equal to minus 1 or 1.7. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to this channel for more videos. We have solved 4 questions on using the graph of a quadratic function to find the solution of another quadratic equation. Pick more examples and try your hands on them. In the next video, we are going to learn how to use the graph of a quadratic function to find the values of x for which the function is positive or negative. Bye bye.